Recovery Rockstars Uncut.
What is up, and welcome to Recovery Rockstars Uncut, episode 21. I am your host, Kevin Z, and on this episode, I interviewed comedian Liz Russo, the Liz Russo. Liz, she's awesome, and she shares her story of her struggles with alcoholism as well as her weight challenges. After a couple of DUIs and a trip to prison, Liz surrendered and got the treatment she deserved. Today, Liz is over 7 years sober and enjoying her career as a stand-up comedian. Liz and her story absolutely rocks. Also, you guys, it would mean the absolute world to me if you subscribe to the podcast, if you shared the podcast, if you would rate the podcast, if you would give me some feedback, because I am doing this for you guys. I want to highlight all your recovery rock stars, share your story, unite the recovery community, and spread the message of hope and inspire others. Without further ado, let's get into the show.
Welcome to Recovery Rockstars Uncut, uniting the recovery community with raw and real stories. Your host, Kevin Z, puts the light on people and brands that are rocking the recovery lifestyle. So you want to be a rock superstar? RecoveryRockstars.com. Now, here's Kevin.
Liz, what is up? How are you tonight?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
I'm good. You know what? I'm super excited. Like we talked about offline, to have you on the show. I'm a fan of yours. You know, I've been following you on Instagram. You're very inspirational. But then I went to your website and I watched some of your stand-up comedy and I was blown away. It's so funny. So I am super thrilled to talk to you and to learn your story and share your story.
Thanks. Yeah, I really appreciate it. You know, I mix my comedy, you know, with my, you know, recovery story over the past 7 years, but I was a comic before that. So it's nice to kind of mesh the two together.
Yeah, absolutely. And where do you live?
I live in Easton, Pennsylvania, which is about an hour north of Philly and an hour west of New York City. I pretty much grew up in Easton, and then my parents retired and moved away and didn't give me a forwarding address. And
is that because of your comedy? They didn't like the comedy? What's going on?
Yes, they've disowned me. No, they're retired. They moved to North Carolina, but I like it here, and it's a good home base for me to travel since I do a lot of traveling. That's
cool. Now, one of the most important questions, are you coming to San Diego anytime soon?
You know, I am actually.
Are you really?
I really, really am. My boyfriend and his family are going to the Notre Dame Navy game out in October. So I'm gonna be there for about 10 days. And so, yeah, that'd be cool if we could meet up or something.
So yes, we're going to have to meet up. I want to get into your history. So how long have you been sober now? What is your sober date?
My sober date is January 16th, 2011. So that makes it 7 years, 8 months, about that. So yeah, it's over 7 years. It's pretty amazing.
Congratulations. So I want to get into your history a little bit. How old were you when you first started drinking?
I was a late bloomer. I was the goody-goody in high school that, you know, I was like everybody's friend, but I definitely was like a goody-goody. Like I didn't go out and party in high school, even in college. It wasn't until, you know, like my senior year, I was already 21. And drinking really wasn't a big thing to me. I know we have the alcoholic gene in my family, and it always kind of like scared me, and it's just not something that I really wanted to do. I was always the kind of person who didn't care if I didn't fit in. I didn't have to follow the crowd, so that just wasn't my MO. But yeah, it wasn't until like my early 20s that I really started drinking, and then it was just waiting for me.
Yeah, so that's interesting because, you know, a lot of the people that we speak to, it's, you know, the drinking started early, the 12, the 13, 14, you know, through the high school years, through the college years. So you didn't start until your senior year in college, but you said there was some alcoholism that ran through the family, and that was something that deterred you because you saw how that affected, was it a family member?
Yeah, you know, I had an uncle that, you know, got drunk at a wedding, and I remember like even, and my parents aren't big drinkers at all, and there was alcohol in the house, but I kind of remember like a few things, like my dad would drink. If he drank too much, he got really sick, and I was like, well, why would I want to do that? It's not something I need. I wasn't looking for something to give me confidence. I wasn't looking to fit in. So it's not like I wanted alcohol for any of those reasons early on, which I think is why a lot of kids start, and curiosity, but it just didn't really interest me. And I kind of liked being the straight edge goody. I was, president of like choir and captain of debate and,
No, you weren't.
I was president of Students Against Drunk Driving.
Wait, you were supposed to debate me on that one, so that was bad joke.
Sorry.
All right. So keep going. Sorry. No more bad jokes.
That's all right.
So that's great. So you like being the goody two shoes, so to speak, and you seem very motivated. You were doing a lot of things in college.
Oh yeah, through high school, through college, I loved being a student. I just loved all of that. Drinking just didn't really come into play. Food was kind of more my thing.
Talk to me about that.
I've been overweight my entire life. I actually say that like donuts were my gateway drug. My mom sent me, both my parents sent me to a weight loss camp for kids when I was like 10 years old. And I just stayed there like through my mid-20s. Kept relapsing on cake because cake's delicious. And
I love cake. Yes.
Right? Who doesn't?
Yes.
And so it's kind of like donut rehab, going to this weight loss camp for kids, it's kind of interesting, the parallels. Once I got sober, I saw how I used food is the same way how I used alcohol. It's just, wasn't as in your face as, you're not getting arrested for eating too many donuts,
Yeah.
So it caused less trouble, but,
right.
But yeah, so I kind of had to tackle both those things once I went into recovery, for sure.
Yeah. So going back to the alcohol, you said, you were a senior once you had that first drink. Did the floodgates open?
Kind of. My recollection is probably a little skewed. I do remember like my first time being really drunk. I was on the floor next to an elevator in my dorm. And, I was just like really wasted. I locked myself out. My friend Lisa had tucked me in and said, don't leave the room. And of course I left the room. And I was by the elevator and someone recognized me from the improv troupe. It was like, are you Liz Russo? And I'm like, yeah.
I'm just improving right now.
Yeah. I was so excited. I was like, and then I threw up.
On them?
So just on the floor next to the elevator. Not a good look.
Yeah.
Not a good look. So so that was kind of like my first. And then, I definitely was more of a social drinker in the beginning, but it progressed pretty quickly. And then by I would say I graduated in 2000. And I would say by 2007, I was in jail. So
that 7-year span is where it really started progressing.
I would say 2004 to 2007 were like the worst of those years. And yeah.
Now, going into the field that you did, so you were doing improv in college. Had you always wanted to be a stand-up comic?
You know what? I never thought about it. I'm a little bit of an introvert. I didn't know. Being in an improv troupe, you have people watching your back, and it's a group situation, which is great. And I like being in an ensemble, and I didn't think I didn't know how to write comedy, for myself. And, I didn't think getting on stage, you leave yourself extremely vulnerable,
right.
Writing your own material and then presenting it. And, my parents, of course, I went to American University in DC, and they were hoping I'd go on to law school or,
Politics.
Be a lawyer, politician, journalist, any of that. So I always put, performing on the side. But I actually got up, play a game with my improv troupe, and I got heckled. The game was celebrity advice, and so the audience was giving me ideas of what celebrity I was. And one guy stood up and he said, oh, she's the fat girl from Wilson Phillips. And that was the first time I was made fun of really for my looks in front of huge group of my peers, and I was embarrassed and sad about it. And, I rolled with it and didn't let my feelings show until, afterwards I went back to my dorm room and ate a cake and cried.
Yeah.
I felt better. And then I started writing my own material, and I came back the next week hosting the show, kind of like a SNL monologue type thing. And I came back with some written material that was self-deprecating, but also kind of like a fuck you to the heckler guy, because he was in the audience. He was every week. And he came up to me afterwards and he said, I really respect you for that. Like, you were funny. You always funny. I was just trying to be funny myself and be like you. And he's like, I really respect how you can like take something and laugh at yourself, not take it too seriously, and be funny with it. And, so, and then something just clicked in my head I wanted to share my story to inspire others and do it in a comedic form, because I think humor can really reach people.
By the way, that guy probably said that because he's got a ton of his own insecurities, right? So he tried to put you down to make himself feel better, but you earned his respect, and I love hearing that.
Yeah, it was good. It was like, and even to this day, if I get heckled in an audience, I tend to make friends. I tend to kind of use empathy in a way, instead of coming back at it with anger. Yeah. And it seems to work for me. Yeah. So, yeah.
Well, that's cool. Let's go to the 2004 to 2007, like you said, the dark days. What happened? What's going on there? Take me back.
Well, so I was dating a guy and living with him and his friends, and they were kind of partiers, and there was drinking a lot of times, and so I was around it more. And so I would just drink socially, and then, really before you know it, like, I was blacking out a lot. I also had the gastric bypass surgery in 2002. So from 2002 on, I couldn't process sugars or the alcohol or anything like a normal person would. So that just increased not only my usage, but the way that it processed. I would black out a lot faster. So they call it addiction transference. So there's a lot of that. It's very common, especially for women, because I had lost like 130 pounds.
Wow.
And which was, a lot, but it happened really quickly.
Yeah.
I wasn't getting therapy, which in your early 20s, when you lose that much weight, I think it messes with your head a whole lot.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Probably should have gotten some counseling to go along with, the nutritional aspect of it. And I think I should have been warned that, maybe you're using food and you're maybe a food addict. You got to watch out for also other addictions like alcohol. But it was early on in those days when, people really, that stuff wasn't coming into play a lot with insurance and stuff. So. And they just thought I was fine. You're a young girl. You're healthy. You'll get the surgery. You'll lose the weight. You'll be perfect.
Yeah.
And then, so that happened. Picked up the alcohol. Started to get more frequent. Got 2 DUIs in 8 months. And as I always say, my second DUI was the worst one because I blew a .25 and the state trooper.
True story. So. Hey. .25. That's scary.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I actually think I was in the low 3s for, I also got public drunkenness later on.
Yeah.
That's, but I did a year in Northampton County Prison for the DUIs, which doesn't happen to everybody, but stuff with my paperwork basically got messed up. So, so then by 2007, I was sitting in prison for every holiday, just everything for a year. That's Christmas, New Year's. That's my 30th birthday I spent in jail.
Yeah, I saw that on your mugshot.
Yeah.
Would you? Was that essentially? It sounds like you were probably the life of the party during those blackout days. You seem to, have a very fun personality. When you have your stand-up, you kind of referring to some of the stuff that you used to do when you were drunk. When you went to jail, was that your rock bottom moments?
No.
No?
No.
Okay.
No. And I don't think I was the life of the party at all. I I was very sad. I would
Interesting.
drink and black out and cause a lot of drama and just get very angry and very sad. I think I was holding on to a lot of resentments and just a lot of emotional baggage that would come out after I drank. And then I'd have to apologize and not know what I did in my blackouts and, and all that kind of stuff. So I wish I was a fun drunk in a lot of ways, but I really wasn't. And, the rock bottom was not prison for a year. And I actually do a lot of comedy shows. I do at an inpatient rehab called the Malvern Institute in Philly. And I go into these inpatient rehabs. So there's people detoxing off of heroin, and I'm doing my comedy routine and talking about my story and all of this stuff. And they get it, they like those outside consequences aren't necessarily going to be your rock bottom, because until you kind of get real with yourself, I didn't necessarily think I had a problem, or why couldn't I control this? I wasn't looking at it as an addiction issue, and I wasn't getting treatment while I was in prison. So I was just building up more and more resentments and not having treatment. Of course, when I get out, I'm going to go back to trying to deal and cope with reality with something else that's artificial. You know what I mean? And I just wanted to be like everyone else and be normal, I guess, and drink normally. Like, why can't I drink normally, So after I got out of jail, I went back to drinking. I had 4 years of parole. So I wasn't supposed to be drinking again, obviously. They would test me, and the last thing state parole in Pennsylvania wants to deal with is babysitting me. So they had other things to do. And I knew when I could kind of get away with it. But unfortunately, I got 2 public drunkenness charges while on parole. One of which I decided during the job that I had a day job, that I would leave during my lunch break for some lunch. And I went to the bar and, a beer shot in the middle of the day in my pantsuit and my heels. And I got blackout drunk, and cops picked me up falling down on my happy place, the curb, put me in the drunk tank for a while. And I mean, this is during the day and like 1 in the afternoon, and there's, a drunk young professional on the street.
On your lunch break. Yeah. On
my lunch break. And then when they released me, it was like maybe 9 o'clock at night, and I still had money, and it was only 9. So I went to the bar, it was a stressful day.
Yeah.
So I needed another drink, and I just kept drinking. And then I had to go back to my job. They're like, the police are looking for you. I'm like, oh no, they found me. No, we talked it out. It's fine.
Did you get fired the next day, or they actually keep you employed? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So what's on the agenda today? And they're like, no, you're fired.
Yeah.
And I had to go to parole and fess up and tell them everything, and they were going to send me back to prison. So even that could have not been my rock bottom, really. Because the consequence of going back to jail, and not even the same jail, I would have gone to a higher security prison, like a state prison, to finish out my sentence, which I still had another year on. The possibility of that consequence didn't faze me.
Didn't faze you at all. Yeah.
No, the alcohol took precedent over everything else. And I think that's something that people don't necessarily understand. It's not that we're consciously choosing the alcohol over everything else, but that's what your brain is telling you to do. It's to make that the priority to live, pretty much. When I went to parole, my parole officer actually said, do you have insurance? And I was like, yeah. He goes, all right, well, here are your 2 options. We can take you to jail today, or we can send you, you can get yourself to rehab and call me from rehab tomorrow. And still I was like, or.
Oh, no, you weren't. Really? You were still thinking that there's another option.
I'm still scheming, trying to get out of the situation, thinking I can control this, and find a way to also drink. And I did leave parole, and I did go to the bar because you know.
Yeah.
So I'm at the bar and I'm scrolling on my phone trying to figure out, a rehab to go to while I'm drinking. And I'm scrolling and I came across one that I just really like the name of. It's called Live and Grin. And I was like, yeah, that's what I want to do. I want to live and grin, And that's why I picked it. So I'm at the bar. I'm like, all right, shots for everybody. I'm going to rehab. And then I drove myself drunk to rehab. And I put a 6-pack in the trunk just in case it didn't work out.
Oh, wow.
So already I'm setting myself up like I'm going to fail. And I need that 6-pack was like my whoopee. You know what I mean? That was my safety blanket. I didn't think I could do it. I really just didn't think I could succeed at getting sober.
Did you feel like you wanted to succeed at that point? It seems like based on what you're telling me, you didn't really care. You're just doing it because that's what you were told to do. Was there any inkling that you're like, okay, I really need this and want this in my life, or you didn't really care?
Well, I think what happened was once I got there, I was like, okay, who am I? And something happened internally. And I think that's why I'm still sober today after going to rehab, is because I had something internally that said, I can't keep doing this. I don't recognize who I am. And alcohol is doing that to me. And I don't know how to stop it, but these people will help me. And, I figured if I did have to be there, why not go all in? Why not, do the work, do what they tell me to do? And I just kind of, in a way, I talk about surrender. I surrendered. And I used to be well liked and successful and, a good person. My parents, I had a good relationship with them. I had good relationships with, guys, and my love life, or a secure job that I wasn't getting drunk at. And I just wanted to become a better person, and I didn't know how to get back to that place. But once I was there and I surrendered, then that was just kind of it for me. I figure they say, you don't hit bottom until you stop digging. So at that point I put down the shovel and I was like, all right, I'm going to stop digging.
Yeah. How long were you at Live and Grin before you surrendered?
No, I think as soon as I checked in, was that sort of internal monologue that was going on inside me. So,
you had a shift.
Yeah, I just had a shift. I was like, that's it, and I didn't know how long I was going to be there. I've never been to rehab before. The only experience I had, was prison.
Yeah.
And that didn't help me at all,
How long were you there?
So I was there for the full 28 days for inpatient. And then I did intensive outpatient and general outpatient, and I did my 90 and 90, which they suggest for the 12 steps, 90 days and 90 meetings in 90 days.
Yeah.
And, I did everything they told me to do, and the thing is my insurance ran out, and I had that 6-pack waiting in my trunk, and my parents wouldn't help me with a payment plan. Basically, I called my parents and I was like, listen, I don't know what to do. My insurance is running out. I need to stay here. I need to continue this. And that was probably about 10 days in. And my dad said, well, you got yourself into this. You're an adult. Go fuck yourself. And hung up the phone. And I was like, okay, I'm fighting for my life. And my parents, I had every reason to leave and give up.
Had they been asking you to get help prior? Was that why he said fuck off, essentially?
I think they have a hard time understanding addiction.
Because that was your first rehab experience, and obviously they saw you go through prison. I mean, you would think that he would want to reach out and say, absolutely, you're in a good place. We want to continue to keep you there. Yeah,
you would think so. I'm not really sure. I think they were just angry I started drinking again.
Yeah.
But so I think that's just a lack of understanding and processing how strong, alcoholism or addiction is. And yeah, I don't know. And I think I kept a lot from them.
Yeah.
I think I minimalized a lot to them to try to, protect them. Uh, like when I went to prison, I didn't think I was going to be there for a year. I thought I was going to be there for 30 days. And I told my mom I was going to do comedy on a cruise.
Oh, really? So how long before they found out you were not doing comedy on a cruise?
Well, when I didn't call them for a little while, I had a correctional officer come in and say, your mom knows where you are and she doesn't want to talk to you. And that was like right around like the holidays, right around like Thanksgiving. It wasn't good. It wasn't good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, they have rights to be angry and disappointed and upset, but I still wish in that moment I would have gotten a little more understanding and empathy, because I was trying to get help and I was asking, but they didn't want to invest in me. They thought I was a broken product. They couldn't invest anymore because I would just break again.
So
and that's sad.
What happened? Were you able to have somebody help you?
So my therapist, my counselor, she realized I was doing the work and she could see it. She had reason to invest in me because I really knew I wanted to be there, and I was doing what I was supposed to do, and she co-signed basically for me to pay off what I needed to pay off for inpatient for like $50 a month, or until I could pay more and everything. So
wow.
Yeah, she believed in me.
Yeah.
And we're still friends to this day, and she's the one who hires me to go do comedy at Malvern, and it all comes together, and but thank God for her, and thank God for my parole officer who sent me to rehab in the first place instead of sending me back to prison. It was treatment that I really needed, and I needed that moment to realize it.
So was the last drink that you had, what was at the bar before you left?
Yeah.
You didn't touch the six-pack when you left?
No, threw it away in a garbage can at a gas station. The people are probably like, what the hell? But,
wow, good for you. And how hard was it, or how hard is it still? I mean, you've got to be around, in your profession, I mean, you're surrounded by alcohol.
Yeah, I'm around it all the time.
Yeah.
I'm around other, I would say, addicts.
Yeah, I was going to say, because comedians, I mean, it's the reputation is, they could be dark and alone and isolated, and a lot of drinking and a lot of drugs that happens behind the scene. Yeah,
very much so. And but on the upside, I'm also friends with a lot of comedians who got sober.
Yeah.
So there actually are a lot of comedians who are in recovery, and I think more so now than I noticed when I started my career. And and we confide in each other, and that's pretty amazing,
Yeah.
But I think the biggest thing for me is that I use it in my act. I use my recovery in the act, and I get inspiration from audience members who say, thank you for telling your story. I know somebody, or I am somebody, in recovery, or somebody still struggling, and stuff like that. And that really inspires me to keep going. And that's really where I get, my energy and motivation from. And it's not from a place of, like holier than thou. I'm not trying to preach to anybody. I'm just using my own personal experiences and humor to communicate to people, and they take away with whatever they're going to take away. But I've gotten really positive feedback from it. So
that's fantastic. Does that happen in a lot of the shows? Do people come up to you after the show?
They do, and they'll use code, like I'm also a friend of Bill's, that kind of thing. And
well, that's really cool to hear. Like you and I were talking earlier on the phone before the podcast. It's like everybody's been affected, and the more somebody can get out there and share their story, it's kind of the Me Too movement. Well, not necessarily, but for alcoholism. I'm like, hey, you know what? I've got that problem too. Thank you for being open and honest about it and talking about it. And you're trying to, you do make light of a very serious situation, but, you have the opportunity now to kind of look and laugh at some of your stories, i.e. the first time you drank and laying by an elevator and puking and seeing, one of your improv members. But you're able to turn, the pain into positivity and being an inspiration. So that's awesome.
And I think, and it's not that I set out to be an inspiration. I mean, if I can be, that's great. But it's just by being and I think humor works this way because I think you're funnier if you're authentic and honest.
100%. Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's all I really aim to be is just authentic and honest. And I always feel like if you can laugh at something, you can get through it, which is why I'm also a little self-deprecating. And I don't think not everybody gets that.
Yeah.
It's my own sort of body positivity because I just don't take myself too seriously. But I get a lot of stuff on the weight loss too. I had to re-lose the 100 pounds. I gained a lot of that back. And, once I gave up the alcohol, I kind of used the tools of recovery to also get healthier, with my nutrition and that kind of thing. So, it's from all different aspects. It doesn't have to necessarily be alcohol. It's just sort of a way of living life that other people can be helped by listening,
So when you got sober, you gained back the 100 pounds?
Well, I gained, I probably have gained and lost the same 100 pounds now like 4 times.
Is that right?
Jail, great diet. I wouldn't suggest it. But there was like 80 pounds that came off in that year because I had gained a lot of that just through drinking and everything. And then I got sober, but I had gained some back and I still felt like crap. And then I found out I was allergic to some stuff. So I gave up alcohol and then I gave up gluten and dairy and soy and eggs, hopes, dreams, happiness, all that. And anything that makes you feel good, I don't do it.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. Obviously, I'm kidding.
Yeah, we're kidding.
But I love cake. I still love cake.
Yeah. Again, you and me both. Cake and donuts. So how do you stay sober? Is there anything that you use personally? Yoga or anything spiritual?
I only laugh at yoga.
Because of sorry.
That's okay. I know.
I know a lot of people lean on it. Everybody loves to do yoga.
They're from Cali. We don't do that out here.
Oh, be quiet. Yes, you do.
No, I'm just not. I'm not. I wish I could be a better meditator.
Yeah,
I really wish I could.
It's hard to.
I think my comedy is really a good source, a good source for me just to like let things out and use humor. And I mean, it's my craft. So,
focus on your craft.
I'm constantly working on the comedy, but I think also just a lot of service. I work at a soup kitchen during the week and I do like their social services. Once I got sober, I mean, I've always been kind of that person that gives back, right? So, and like I said, that goody in high school,
Mm-hmm.
I became a recovery specialist out here. I got certified, and so now I help other people, and that really keeps me going. It really does,
Absolutely love that. So, what for somebody who's listening who's struggling, what is your biggest piece of advice?
I mean, it's really hard to give other people any advice. I feel like getting honest with yourself is really hard to do, and not being afraid of change or, that kind of thing. Because your life changes, when you get sober, and you're going to have to let go of some friends probably, or maybe the relationship won't last, or, what all the other stuff you're worrying about. But really, if addiction is getting in the way of you living your best life, like that's what you really need to tackle before anything else. So you can see clearly. So I think for me, getting honest was like the biggest thing. There's help out there, and there's no shame in it. That's why sharing my story, I like to reduce that negative stigma that people have. I mean, everybody has something they're going through, and
100%.
There's no reason why you shouldn't ask for help.
Yeah. I love what you said earlier, where it's just like being honest with yourself, and you realize like, this isn't me. This isn't who I am. Like, who am I?
Yeah.
Yeah. To me, that just was really impactful. Gave me the chills a little bit.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, and that's 100% like how I felt. It was just like, I didn't recognize who I was.
Well,
you've
seen it.
Shell of myself, you know. I used to really like myself. I used to be pretty awesome. Where did that person go? You know?
Yeah, I agree. So tell me now, for those who are listening, how can people find you? How can they follow you?
So my website is thelizrusso.com. So it's lizrusso.com was taken.
So we got the.
It's like something weird too. It's like, I don't know, like some kind of Japanese characters. There's something weird about it. So I had to put a the in front of my name.
Okay, guys, don't go to Liz Russo. The Liz Russo.
That's right. thelizrusso.com. You know, I'm on Facebook. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Instagram. I'm on all that stuff. But you can find all of that through my website, thelizrusso.com. That's the easiest way.
Okay, perfect. And then you're touring. So on the website, you've got all your calendar of events listed. I saw the podcast listed for tonight. I was like, yeah, woo, that's awesome.
That's right.
Yeah, it's an open calendar.
Absolutely.
That's awesome. And then when you come to San Diego, we're definitely hooking up.
I hope I can get some shows out there, and but I'm touring all over the place. I'll be in Kansas. I'll be in Georgia. I'm all over. So I'm excited to go out to San Diego for sure. I hear it's good weather.
Yeah,
maybe I'll try yoga.
You and I will take a class together while we eat cake. In the back. See? Yeah.
That's perfect.
The best of both worlds. Well, this time I want to say thank you so much for being a part of the show and being open and honest and sharing your story and providing words of advice and insights. And you are absolutely a rock star, and I appreciate you.
Thank you very much. Thanks for giving me the opportunity. I hope somebody listening is helped. Yeah,
and those who are, again, go follow her. Go to thelizrusso.com. Watch some of her videos. She's hilarious. Hilarious.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And we will talk to you soon.
All right, thanks.
Thanks for being in Recovery Rockstars. I guess today's episode is done. In all seriousness, though, Kevin appreciates you being part of this community. RecoveryRockstars.com. Want to email us? Kevin@RecoveryRockstars.com. Facebook, Recovery Rockstars. Instagram us @Recovery Rockstars. Kevin's Wardrobe brought to you by Kevin. Kevin's Transportation brought to you by Kevin. Kevin's cable bill paid by Kevin so he can keep this podcast going. Goodbye.